The night Victoria Hale told Ryan Mercer she still loved him, she was standing in a freezing cabin wearing his dead mother's sweater, and he wanted to throw her out into the snow. 7 years. 7 years of pretending to hate the woman he'd never stopped thinking about. 7 years of family dinners where he couldn't look at her without remembering what they'd destroyed. And now their parents, the reason they'd sacrificed everything, were getting divorced anyway. All that pain, all that silence, for absolutely nothing. If you want to know how two people can love each other and still ruin everything, stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Ryan Mercer knew something was wrong the moment his father suggested the family retreat. "It'll be good for everyone," Thomas Mercer had said over the phone, his voice carrying that forced cheerfulness Ryan had learned to distrust. "Fresh air, quality time. Your sister's bringing the kids, and Margaret's coming with Victoria." Ryan's hand had tightened around his phone. "Victoria's coming? Of course. She's family." Family. The word tasted like rust in Ryan's mouth. "I don't think Lily and I can make it, Dad. Work's been—" "Ryan," his father's voice sharpened. "It's been 7 years. You two need to figure out how to be in the same room without looking like you want to murder each other." If only it were that simple. Ryan had hung up and stared at his apartment's water-stained ceiling, listening to Lily sing off-key in her bedroom. His daughter. His entire world. The reason he got up every morning, and the excuse he used for everything else, including why he couldn't be around Victoria Hale. Now, 3 weeks later, Ryan stood in the parking lot of a mountain cabin rental, watching his 11-year-old daughter bounce excitedly in the passenger seat of his beat-up Honda while his stomach twisted into Met Tuoskanitz. "Is Aunt Victoria really going to be here?" Lily asked for the 5th time. "She's not your aunt," Ryan muttered, grabbing their bags from the trunk. "But Grandpa married her mom, so step-aunt. Maybe. It's complicated." Everything about Victoria was complicated. The cabin was bigger than Ryan had expected, 2 stories of dark wood and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a frozen lake. Expensive. Of course it was expensive. Margaret had probably paid for the whole thing without blinking. Ryan's sister Claire met them at the door, her 3-year-old son attached to her hip. "You made it. Was the drive okay?" "Fine." Ryan kept his eyes on the interior, scanning for the one person he was desperately trying to avoid. "She's not here yet," Claire said quietly. "Weather's getting bad. Margaret called. They might not make it until tomorrow." Ryan hated the relief that flooded through him. One more day. One more day before he had to see her face and remember everything he'd spent 7 years trying to forget. "Uncle Ryan!" His nephew squirmed out of Claire's arms and launched himself at Ryan's legs. "Hey, buddy." Ryan scooped up the kid, grateful for the distraction. "You get bigger every time I see you." "I'm 3 now." "No kidding? When did that happen?" Lily rolled her eyes. "Last month, Dad. We went to his birthday party." Right. The afternoon passed in a blur of unpacking and small talk. Ryan's father grilled steaks on the back deck despite the dropping temperature. Claire's husband, Mark, built a fire in the massive stone fireplace. Lily played board games with her cousins in the loft. Ryan stood at the kitchen window, nursing a beer he didn't really want, watching snow begin to fall. "You okay?" Claire appeared beside him, refilling her wine glass. "Fine." "You've said that word 12 times since you got here." Ryan took a long drink. "What do you want me to say?" "That you're freaking out about seeing Victoria." "I'm not—" "Ryan." Claire's voice softened. "I know things are weird between you two. I don't know why, and honestly, I stopped trying to figure it out years ago. But whatever happened, you can't avoid her forever. Watch me." Dad invited her. Margaret invited her. She's coming whether you like it or not. Ryan's jaw tightened. "Then I'll stay in my room." "With Lily? You're going to hide from your family with your 11-year-old daughter?" "If that's what it takes." Claire studied him for a long moment. "You know what's weird? You and Victoria act like you hate each other, but neither of you has ever said why. No big fight, no dramatic story. You just stopped talking. Right around the time Dad and Margaret started dating." Ryan's fingers tightened around his beer bottle. "And then you had Lily," Claire continued. "Out of nowhere, some woman you never talked about. And suddenly you're a single father working 2 jobs and barely keeping your head above water, and you won't accept help from anyone." "I don't need help." Everyone needs help, Ryan. I'm fine. There was that word again. Claire sighed. Just try not to make this weekend miserable for everyone, okay? Whatever's between you and Victoria, it's been 7 years. Maybe it's time to let it go. She walked away before Ryan could respond, which was good because he had no idea what to say. Let it go. As if it were that simple. As if he hadn't spent 7 years trying to do exactly that. As if he didn't wake up some mornings and forget, just for a second, that Victoria wasn't his anymore. That she'd never really been his at all. The snow fell harder. Victoria Hale sat in the back of her mother's Range Rover, answering emails on her phone while Margaret Mercer Hale navigated increasingly treacherous roads. "We should turn back," Victoria said without looking up. "We're almost there." "The weather report says—" "I heard the weather report." Margaret's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Your stepfather invited us. We're going." Stepfather. The word still felt foreign even after 7 years. Victoria returned to her emails. Quarterly reports. Acquisition proposals. A crisis with their Tokyo office that her VP couldn't seem to handle without her. The familiar rhythm of work. Problems she could solve, numbers that made sense, control she could maintain, unlike everything else in her life. "Are you going to talk to him?" Margaret asked suddenly. Victoria's fingers stilled on her phone. "Talk to who?" "Don't play dumb, Victoria. It doesn't suit you. I have nothing to say to Ryan Mercer." "You used to have plenty to say to him. Before whatever happened." Victoria's throat tightened. "That was a long time ago. 7 years isn't that long. It is when you're trying to forget someone." The words slipped out before Victoria could stop them. She felt her mother's eyes flick to the rearview mirror. "So you admit there's something to forget?" "I admit nothing." "Victoria, can we please not do this?" Victoria's voice came out sharper than intended. "I came on this trip like you asked. I'll be civil. I'll smile and make small talk and pretend everything's fine. But I'm not discussing Ryan with you." Margaret was quiet for a long moment. Then, "He had a daughter, you know, about 6 months after you two stopped speaking." Victoria's chest constricted. She knew. Of course she knew. She'd been at the hospital when Lily was born, standing in the waiting room with the rest of the family, watching Ryan emerge with a tiny bundle in his arms and devastation in his eyes. Some other woman's baby. Some random hookup he'd never talked about. It had felt like a knife in her chest. "I know," Victoria said quietly. "Did you ever wonder—" "No." "Victoria." "I said no." Victoria's voice went cold, the tone she used in boardrooms when someone pushed too hard. "Ryan made his choices, I made mine. We're both fine." Fine. That useless word. Margaret sighed, but dropped it. They drove in silence for another 20 minutes before the GPS announced they'd arrived at their destination. The cabin materialized out of the snow like something from a postcard, warm light glowing from the windows, smoke curling from the chimney. Safe. Welcoming. Victoria wanted to throw up. "Ready?" Margaret asked. "No." "Good. Neither am I." Her mother's smile was tight. "Let's go pretend we're a functional family." They grabbed their bags and hurried through the snow to the front door. It opened before they could knock. Thomas Mercer stood in the doorway, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "You made it! We were getting worried." "The roads are terrible," Margaret said, stepping inside and kissing his cheek. "We probably should have waited until morning." "Well, you're here now. That's what matters." Victoria followed her mother inside, shaking snow from her coat. The cabin was gorgeous, all exposed beams and rustic elegance. A fire crackled in a massive stone fireplace. Children's laughter echoed from upstairs. And standing by the kitchen window, backlit by the overhead lights, was Ryan. Victoria's breath caught. 7 years. 7 years since they'd been in the same room. 7 years since she'd let herself really look at him. He'd changed, gotten broader through the shoulders. There were lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before. His hair was shorter, streaked with early gray at the temples. He looked tired, older, beautiful. Their eyes met across the room. Ryan's expression shuddered immediately, that blank, careful mask he'd perfected, the one that said he felt nothing, wanted nothing, remembered nothing. Victoria lifted her chin and gave him the same look back. "See? We're fine. We're both fine. Victoria! Claire appeared from somewhere, pulling her into a hug. It's been forever. How are you? Busy, Victoria said, grateful for the interruption. Work's been insane. I saw you on the cover of Fortune. Youngest female billionaire in tech, right? That's incredible. It's just a number. A very large number. Claire laughed. Come on, I'll show you where you're sleeping. Mom and Thomas are in the master suite downstairs. Ryan and Lily are in the room next to it. Mark and I have the kids in the loft, which means you get the guest room upstairs. You'll have your own bathroom and everything. Victoria followed Claire up the stairs, painfully aware of Ryan's eyes on her back. She didn't look at him again. Couldn't. The guest room was small but comfortable. A queen bed covered in a thick down comforter, a window overlooking the frozen lake, a small attached bathroom. It's perfect, Victoria said. Thank you. Dinner's in about an hour. Just steaks and salad, nothing fancy. Claire hesitated in the doorway. It's really good to see you, Victoria. I know things are complicated with you and Ryan, but I'm glad you came. After Claire left, Victoria sat on the edge of the bed and stared at her hands. She shouldn't have come. She'd known it was a mistake the moment her mother mentioned the trip, but Margaret had insisted, and Victoria had been too tired to fight. Too tired of making excuses, too tired of running. 7 years of running. Her phone buzzed. Work email. Crisis in Tokyo escalating. She should call her VP, handle it. Lose herself in the familiar rhythm of problems she could actually solve. Instead, she set the phone down and pressed her palms against her eyes. One weekend. She could survive one weekend. She'd survived worse. Imashamt. Dinner was exactly as awkward as Ryan had feared. They sat around the massive dining table, Thomas at the head, Margaret at the foot, everyone else arranged in between like pieces on a chessboard. Ryan had strategically placed himself as far from Victoria as possible, with Lily serving as a buffer. Not that it mattered. He could feel Victoria's presence like a physical thing, every movement, every breath, every time she laughed at something Mark said or answered one of Claire's questions. So, Victoria, Thomas said, cutting into his steak. Margaret tells me you're expanding into Europe? Trying to, Victoria said. The regulatory environment is complicated. When isn't it? Thomas chuckled. But if anyone can navigate it, I'm sure you can. You've always been brilliant. Ryan's jaw tightened. He focused on his plate. What about you, Ryan? Margaret asked. How's work? Fine. Lily kicked him under the table. I mean, it's good. Busy. The usual. Still at the warehouse? Margaret's tone was carefully neutral. Yes. And the weekend shifts? When they're available. Margaret exchanged a glance with Thomas. Ryan knew that look. Pity, concern. The same look everyone gave him when they compared his life to Victoria's. Warehouse manager versus tech billionaire. Tiny apartment versus penthouses in 3 cities. Struggling to make rent versus private jets. He'd stopped caring about the comparison years ago. Or at least, he'd learned to pretend he stopped caring. Ryan's being modest, Claire interjected. They promoted him to shift supervisor last year. That's a big deal. It's not a big deal, Ryan muttered. It is. You're basically running the whole night operation now. Congratulations, Victoria said quietly. Ryan's eyes snapped to hers. It was the first word she'd spoken directly to him all evening. Thanks, he managed. Their eyes held for a second too long. Something flickered in Victoria's expression, something that looked almost like pain before she looked away and reached for her wine glass. Daddy works really hard, Lily announced proudly. He's always tired, but he never complains. That's because complaining doesn't pay the bills, sweetheart, Ryan said, ruffling her hair. Your father's right, Thomas said. Hard work builds character. Victoria's laugh was sharp and bitter. Does it? I always thought hard work just made you hard. Everyone went quiet. I didn't mean, Victoria started. No, you're probably right, Ryan cut in. Nothing builds character like working yourself to death for a paycheck that barely covers rent. Ryan, Margaret warned. What? She's the expert on work, right? Billionaire at 30? Must be nice. Ryan, Thomas said more firmly. But Victoria was already standing, her napkin falling to the table. Excuse me, I need some air. She walked out before anyone could respond. Ryan stared at his plate, his heart pounding. Stupid. That was stupid. He shouldn't have. What the hell was that? Claire hissed. Nothing. That wasn't nothing. She started it. She made one comment and you practically bit her head off. Can we please just drop it? No, we can't drop it. Claire's voice rose. What is wrong with you two? You've been sniping at each other since the moment she walked in. It's exhausting. Claire, Mark said quietly, touching her arm. No, I'm tired of pretending this is normal. They used to be friends, and now they can't even have a civil conversation, and no one will tell me why. Because we were more than friends, Ryan wanted to scream. Because I loved her. Because she loved me. Because we destroyed everything trying to do the right thing, and it didn't even matter. But he just said, it's complicated. Everything with you is complicated, Claire shot back. Lily's hand found Ryan's under the table. It's okay, Daddy. Ryan squeezed his daughter's fingers and felt something crack inside his chest. Lily shouldn't have to comfort him. She was 11 years old. She should be thinking about dolls and homework and friends, not managing her father's emotions. I'm sorry, sweetheart, he said quietly. I'm sorry you had to see that. It's not your fault. Aunt Victoria is just mean sometimes. She's not mean. The words came out automatically. She has a lot on her mind. Then why does she always look at you like that? Ryan's breath caught. Like what? Like she's sad, but also angry, but also something else I don't have a word for. Out of the mouths of babes. I don't know, Lily. I think you do. Ryan looked at his daughter, this small, perceptive person who saw too much and understood even more. When had she gotten so smart? When had she learned to read him so well? Eat your dinner, he said gently. We'll talk about it later. Promise? Promise. It was a lie. They both knew it. Victoria stood on the back deck, letting snow collect in her hair. Stupid. Showing emotion was stupid. She'd learned years ago to keep everything locked down. In boardrooms, in negotiations, in life. Control was everything. Control was survival. But one look at Ryan across that dinner table and she'd cracked. 7 years. 7 years of board meetings and acquisitions and building an empire. 7 years of telling herself she'd moved on. That she was fine. That Ryan Mercer was just a mistake she'd made when she was too young to know better. 7 years of lying to herself. The door opened behind her. Go away, Victoria said without turning. It's my deck too, Ryan's voice replied. Victoria's hands tightened on the railing. I mean it, Ryan. I can't do this right now. Do what? Stand on a deck? Talk to you. Fight with you. Pretend I don't want to. She cut herself off. Silence. Then Ryan's footsteps, crunching through the snow, coming closer. He stopped a few feet away, close enough to talk, far enough to maintain distance. Pretend you don't want to what? He asked quietly. Victoria closed her eyes. Nothing. Forget it. I can't forget it. I can't forget any of it. Her breath hitched. Do you know how hard it is? Ryan continued, his voice rough. Sitting in that room, watching you smile at everyone else, knowing I can't. He stopped, started again. 7 years, Victoria. 7 years and I still can't be in the same room with you without feeling like I'm dying. Victoria turned to face him. He looked wrecked. Snow in his hair, exhaustion carved into every line of his face, eyes full of something that looked like desperation. Then why did you agree to come? She whispered. Because my father asked. Because I thought I could handle it. Because I'm an idiot who apparently hasn't learned anything. He laughed bitterly. What about you? Why did you come? Same reasons, different order. We're quite a pair. We're not a pair. We're not anything. No, we're not. But the way he was looking at her said otherwise. Victoria's heart pounded against her ribs. This was dangerous. Being alone with him was dangerous. She should go inside. End this conversation. Put the walls back up. Instead, she heard herself say, Your daughter seems nice. Pain flashed across Ryan's face. She is. She looks like you. I know. Do you ever... Victoria stopped. She had no right to ask. No right to know. Do I ever what? Nothing. I should go inside. But she didn't move. Neither did Ryan. Snow fell between them, soft and silent, while years of unspoken words hung in the air. "I'm sorry," Ryan said finally. "For what I said at dinner, that was out of line. You weren't wrong. I do work too much." "That's not what I meant." "I know what you meant." More silence. "Victoria, don't." Her voice cracked. "Please don't. I can't do this with you. Not here. Not now." "When then? It's been 7 years. When are we supposed to talk about it?" "Never. We're supposed to never talk about it. That was the deal." "Screw the deal. Ryan, our parents are inside right now, probably having the same polite, careful conversation they've been having for years. Do you know why? Because they're miserable. They've been miserable for at least 2 years, maybe more. And they're staying together anyway because of what? Pride? Stubbornness? Fear of admitting they made a mistake?" Victoria's chest tightened. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the fact that we sacrificed everything, us, our future, everything we could have had, to protect a relationship that's already falling apart." The words hit Victoria like a physical blow. "That's not true." "Isn't it? When's the last time you saw them actually happy together?" Victoria opened her mouth, closed it, tried to remember. Came up empty. "Exactly," Ryan said. "We destroyed ourselves for nothing." "Stop it." "Why? Because it hurts?" "Everything about this hurts, Victoria. Everything about losing you has hurt for 7 goddamn years." "Ryan, please. I loved you." The words exploded out of him. "I loved you so much it terrified me. And I walked away because I thought I was doing the right thing, because I thought protecting them was more important than us. And you want to know the worst part?" Victoria couldn't breathe, couldn't move, couldn't do anything but stare at him through the falling snow. "The worst part is that I'd probably do it all over again," Ryan said, his voice breaking. "Because that's who I am. The guy who sacrifices everything. The guy who takes care of everyone else and pretends he doesn't need anything. The guy who's so goddamn noble, he destroys the best thing that ever happened to him." Tears were streaming down Victoria's face. "Ryan, and then you built this whole empire, this perfect, successful, billion-dollar life. And I'm still here, working in a warehouse, raising a daughter alone, trying not to hate myself for every choice I ever made. You think my life is perfect?" Victoria's voice rose. "You think any of it matters? The money? The awards? The magazine covers? I would trade all of it, every single dollar, for one more day of what we had, one more hour, one more minute." Ryan stared at her. "I loved you too," Victoria whispered. "I still love you. I never stopped. And it's killing me." The confession hung between them, raw and terrible and honest. Then Ryan closed the distance between them and kissed her. It was desperate and messy and tasted like tears and snow and 7 years of pain. Victoria's hands fisted in his jacket. Ryan's fingers tangled in her hair. They kissed like drowning people, like they could erase the years, like they could fix everything that was broken. When they finally broke apart, they were both shaking. "We can't do this," Victoria whispered against his mouth. "I know. Our parents, I know. Everything we sacrificed was for nothing. You said it yourself." "I didn't say that." "You were thinking it." Victoria pulled back, putting inches between them. "This doesn't change anything. It changes everything. Ryan, they're getting divorced, Victoria. My dad told me 3 weeks ago. He's just waiting until after the holidays to tell everyone else." The world tilted. "What?" "They're done. Have been for months, so whatever we destroyed ourselves protecting, it's gone. It's been gone. We just didn't know it." Victoria felt like she'd been punched. "That's not, he wouldn't." "He would. He did. And we wasted 7 years for nothing." "Oh my God." Victoria's legs gave out. She would have fallen if Ryan hadn't caught her. "I've got you," he murmured, pulling her against his chest. "I've got you." Victoria buried her face in his jacket and sobbed. For the lost years. For the sacrifices that meant nothing. For the future they'd destroyed trying to do the right thing. Ryan held her while she broke apart, and the snow kept falling, covering everything in white. Inside the cabin, Claire stood at the kitchen window, watching her brother hold Victoria Hale in the snow. "Well," she said quietly, "that explains a lot." Margaret appeared beside her, wineglass in hand. How long have they been out there? 10 minutes, maybe more. Should we? No. Claire turned to face her stepmother. I think we should leave them alone. Margaret was quiet for a long moment. Then, Thomas and I are separating. Claire's breath caught. What? After the holidays? We were going to tell everyone this weekend, but Margaret gestured toward the window. It seems like maybe the truth is coming out anyway. Does Ryan know? Thomas told him a few weeks ago. And Victoria? I haven't told her yet. I wanted to do it in person. Claire looked back at the window. Ryan and Victoria were still standing close, talking now instead of kissing. Victoria's face was streaked with tears. Ryan's hand was on her cheek. They were together, weren't they? Claire said. Before you and Thomas got married. That's why they hate each other. Because they had to end it. Margaret's silence was answer enough. Jesus, Claire breathed. All this time. They thought they were protecting us, Margaret said quietly. Being noble, self-sacrificing, all the things good children are supposed to do. And meanwhile, you and Thomas were falling apart. Yes. Does he know about them? We've never discussed it directly. But Thomas isn't stupid. I think he's known for years. And you just let them suffer? Let them think. What would you have had me do, Claire? Force them to be together? Make it awkward for everyone? They made their choice. A choice based on a lie. A choice based on love, Margaret corrected. Misguided, perhaps, but love nonetheless. Claire shook her head. This is so messed up. Yes, it is. They watched in silence as Ryan and Victoria finally pulled apart. Victoria wiped her eyes. Ryan said something that made her laugh, a broken, painful sound that carried through the glass. Then they came inside together. The moment they entered the warm cabin, the careful masks slid back into place. Victoria's spine straightened. Ryan's expression shuddered. By the time they reached the living room, they looked like strangers again. But Claire had seen the truth, and she suspected everyone else would see it too, before the weekend was over. At 3 a.m, Ryan gave up on sleep. He'd been lying in the dark for hours, listening to Lily breathe in the bed beside him, replaying everything that had happened on the deck. I still love you. The words echoed in his head like a prayer, like a curse. He thought he'd buried those feelings years ago, packed them away in the same box where he kept his dreams and his youth and everything else he'd sacrificed for responsibility. But one conversation with Victoria and the box had exploded open. Moving quietly so he wouldn't wake Lily, Ryan pulled on sweatpants and a t-shirt and padded into the main room. The cabin was dark except for the dying fire. Outside, the storm had intensified, wind howling, snow falling so thick it was impossible to see the lake. Ryan moved to the window, pressing his forehead against the cold glass. What was he supposed to do now? Nothing had changed. Not really. They were still step-siblings, technically. Their parents were getting divorced, but that didn't erase 7 years of family dinners and forced proximity and pretending they meant nothing to each other. And he still had Lily to think about. Lily, who deserved stability. Lily, who'd never asked to have a father who was barely holding his life together. Lily, who... Can't sleep either? Ryan spun around. Victoria stood in the doorway to the stairs, wrapped in an oversized cardigan that looked suspiciously like one his mother used to wear. Her hair was loose around her shoulders. Her feet were bare. She looked 18 again. I should go back to bed, Ryan said. Probably. Neither of them moved. Victoria, I meant what I said, she interrupted. On the deck, I meant all of it. Ryan's heart stuttered. So did I. But it doesn't matter, does it? We can't undo 7 years. We can't pretend nothing happened. No, we can't. So what do we do? I don't know. Victoria moved closer, her bare feet silent on the hardwood. Tell me about her. Ryan knew immediately who she meant. There's nothing to tell. She gave you a daughter. She gave me a night I barely remember and a pregnancy test on my doorstep 2 months later. That's it. Did you love her? No? Did you try? Ryan's laugh was bitter. I was 21 years old, heartbroken over a girl I couldn't have, and drunk enough to make terrible decisions. No, I didn't try. I didn't feel anything. But you kept the baby. Of course I kept the baby. What was I supposed to do? She didn't want to be a mother. Someone had to want her. Victoria's eyes glistened. Lily's lucky to have you. I'm the one who's lucky. She's the only good thing I've ever done. That's not true, isn't it? Ryan moved closer, closing the distance between them. What else do I have to show for my life, Victoria? A warehouse job? A one-bedroom apartment? A string of responsibilities I can barely manage? You have integrity. You have your daughter's love. You have you. The word came out raw. For about 5 minutes, 7 years ago, I had you, and that was worth more than everything else combined. Victoria's breath hitched. Do you know what I think about sometimes? Ryan continued. I think about that weekend we spent at the beach, before everything fell apart. Do you remember? Of course I remember. We stayed up all night talking. You fell asleep on my shoulder while the sun came up, and I thought, this is it. This is what happiness feels like. I wanted to live in that moment forever. Ryan, stop. Why? Because it hurts? Because remembering what we had makes it worse? Yes, too bad. Because I've been remembering it every single day for 7 years. I've been comparing every woman I meet to you, every moment to that weekend, every possibility to what we could have had. That's not fair. Nothing about this is fair. They were standing so close now, Ryan could count her eyelashes, could see the gold flecks in her eyes, could remember exactly what it felt like to kiss her. We should go back to bed, Victoria whispered. We should. This is a bad idea. Terrible idea. Ryan, he kissed her again. This time it was slower, softer, less desperate and more devastating. Victoria's hand slid up his chest. Ryan's fingers curved around her waist, feeling the warmth of her skin through the thin cardigan. 7 years. 7 years and she still tasted the same, still fit against him like she was designed for this exact purpose. Still made him feel like he could conquer the world or burn it down, whatever she wanted. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing hard. We can't do this, Victoria said against his mouth. You keep saying that. Because it's true. Why? Our parents are getting divorced. We're not related. We're both adults. What's stopping us? Everything. Your daughter, my career. The fact that we don't know how to be together without destroying each other. We didn't destroy each other. We destroyed ourselves trying to do the right thing. Same result. Ryan pulled back, studying her face. Are you happy, Victoria? With your empire and your billions and your magazine covers? That's not a fair question. Answer it anyway. Victoria looked away. I'm successful. That's not what I asked. It's the only answer I have. Something in Ryan's chest cracked. We're both so broken. I know. I don't know how to fix it. I don't think we can. They stood in the darkness, inches apart, while the storm raged outside. Finally, Victoria stepped back. I should go upstairs. Yeah, okay. But she didn't move. Just looked at him with those eyes that saw everything, that knew everything, that made him want to confess every secret he'd ever kept. Ryan? Yeah? Tomorrow morning, when we wake up and have to face everyone, can we pretend this didn't happen? Is that what you want? I don't know what I want anymore. That makes 2 of us. Victoria reached out and touched his face, just her fingertips against his cheek, feather-light and devastating. Good night, Ryan. Then she turned and walked back upstairs, leaving Ryan alone in the dark. He stood there for a long time, touching the place where her fingers had been, wondering how someone could feel so much and have so little at the same time. Eventually, he went back to bed, but he didn't sleep. Oh. The next morning, the storm had gotten worse. Ryan woke to Lily shaking his shoulder. Daddy, Daddy, wake up. What's wrong, sweetheart? Grandpa says we're snowed in. Nobody can leave. Ryan sat up, his entire body aching from lack of sleep. What do you mean, snowed in? Come look. He followed Lily to the window. Outside, the world had disappeared beneath 3 feet of fresh snow. The driveway was completely buried. The road was invisible. Jesus, Ryan muttered. Grandpa says the power might go out, and the roads won't be clear for at least 2 days. 2 days. trapped in a cabin with Victoria, with everyone. This was going to be a disaster. Ryan pulled on clothes and went downstairs to find chaos. Thomas was on the phone with the road service. Margaret was checking their food supplies. Claire's kids were bouncing around excitedly, thrilled by the adventure. And Victoria was standing by the window, coffee in hand, staring at the snow. Their eyes met. Ryan looked away first. "Okay, everyone," Thomas said, hanging up his phone. "Here's the situation. The roads are impassable. Power's still on, but they're warning it might go out. We have enough food for a few days if we're careful. The fireplace works. We'll be fine." "This is so cool," Claire's son yelled. "This is a disaster," Claire corrected. "It's an adventure," Margaret said firmly. "We'll make the best of it." Ryan caught Victoria's expression and had to suppress a laugh. An adventure. Right. More like a nightmare. The day crawled by. They played board games, built puzzles, told stories. Ryan helped Mark maintain the fire. Victoria and Margaret cooked lunch. Claire wrangled her kids. And through it all, Ryan and Victoria carefully avoided each other, except when their hands brushed reaching for the same puzzle piece, except when they ended up sitting next to each other during the board game, except when Ryan looked up from his book and caught Victoria staring at him from across the room. By evening, the tension was unbearable. "I think I'm going to bed early," Victoria announced after dinner. "Me too," Ryan said immediately. Claire gave him a look. Ryan ignored her, but as he was getting Lily settled, reading her a bedtime story and making sure she had enough blankets, his father knocked on the door. "Ryan, can I talk to you for a minute?" Ryan's stomach sank. "Sure, Dad." They walked into the hallway. Thomas closed the door behind them. "What's going on with you and Victoria?" Ryan's mind went blank. "What do you mean?" "Don't play dumb. You've been dancing around each other all day like the floor's electrified." It's complicated." "Everything with you two is complicated." Thomas sighed. "Look, I need to tell you something. Margaret and I are separating." Ryan forced himself to look surprised. "What? Dad, I know. I should have told everyone together, but things have been tense, and I thought maybe... I don't know what I thought." Thomas rubbed his face. "The point is, we've been unhappy for a while. We tried to make it work, for the family, for you and Victoria and everyone else, but sometimes trying isn't enough." "I'm sorry, Dad." "Don't be. This isn't your fault." Thomas looked at him intently. "But I need you to understand something. Whatever you and Victoria sacrificed for us, whatever you two gave up to make this family work, it's over now. You don't have to protect us anymore." Ryan's throat closed. "I've known for years," Thomas said quietly, "about you and her. I'm not blind, son. I saw how you looked at her, how she looked at you. And then suddenly you both stopped looking at each other at all." "Dad, I never said anything because I thought you'd made your choice, and I was grateful, honestly. Grateful you were mature enough to put the family first. But watching you these past 7 years, watching you both pretend..." He stopped. "Life's too short, Ryan, and happiness is too rare. Don't waste any more time trying to do the right thing if the right thing is making you miserable." Ryan couldn't speak. Thomas squeezed his shoulder so as think about it. Then he walked away, leaving Ryan standing in the hallway with his entire world tilting. He knew. They all knew. And they'd let him suffer anyway. Ryan wasn't sure whether to laugh or punch a wall. Instead, he did the only thing that made sense. He went to find Victoria. Victoria's room was dark when Ryan knocked. For a long moment there was nothing, just silence and the sound of wind howling against the windows. Ryan was about to turn away when the door opened. Victoria stood there in pajama pants and an oversized sweater, her hair still damp from a shower. Her eyes widened when she saw him. "Ryan, what are you—" "He knows." Ryan's voice came out rough. "My dad knows. About us. He's known for years." Victoria went very still. "What?" "He just told me. Said he could see it, the way we looked at each other, the way we stopped looking at each other." "That's not... He couldn't have..." "He did." Ryan laughed, the sound edging toward hysteria. "They're getting divorced, Victoria, and he told me to stop wasting time trying to do the right thing." Victoria's hand tightened on the doorframe. "When did he tell you about the divorce?" 3 weeks ago. And you didn't think to mention it yesterday? On the deck? When I was falling apart? I was falling apart too. I wasn't exactly thinking clearly. Victoria stared at him. Then she pulled him into the room and shut the door. The space was small and warm, lit only by a bedside lamp. The bed was rumpled like she'd been lying there, unable to sleep. Her phone sat on the nightstand, screen dark. My mother hasn't said anything to me, Victoria said, about the divorce. Maybe she's waiting for the right moment. There's never a right moment for something like that. Victoria pressed her palms against her eyes. This is insane, all of it. We destroyed ourselves for nothing. That's what I said. And your father just, what, gave you permission to be with me? I don't need his permission. You know what I mean. Ryan moved closer. He said life's too short, and happiness is too rare. Sounds like something people say when they're getting divorced. Maybe. Or maybe he's right. Victoria dropped her hands and looked at him, really looked at him. Her eyes were red-rimmed, exhausted. What are you doing here, Ryan? I don't know. Yes, you do. He did. He absolutely did. But saying it out loud felt like stepping off a cliff. I'm tired, Ryan said finally. I'm tired of pretending. I'm tired of running. I'm tired of waking up every morning and feeling like half of me is missing. Victoria's breath caught. And I know it's complicated, Ryan continued. I know we have a million reasons why this can't work. But standing here right now looking at you, I can't remember a single one of them. Your daughter would probably like you if you gave her a chance. Your life is here. Mine is everywhere else. Then we figure it out. Ryan, Victoria's voice broke. I built an empire trying to forget you. I worked 16-hour days. I flew to 3 continents in a week. I said yes to every opportunity, every acquisition, every expansion. And you know what? What? None of it worked. I still thought about you every single day. Ryan closed the distance between them. Then stop thinking and do something about it. Like what? Like this. He kissed her. And this time, neither of them pulled away. Victoria's hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer. Ryan backed her against the wall, his fingers sliding into her damp hair. They kissed like they were starving, like 7 years hadn't been enough time to forget how this felt. We shouldn't, Victoria gasped between kisses. I know. Everyone's downstairs. I don't care. Lily's in the next room. That made Ryan pause. He pulled back, breathing hard. You're right, I should go. But Victoria's hands were still twisted in his shirt. I didn't say that. Victoria, stay. The word came out broken. Just stay. We don't have to. I just don't want to be alone tonight. Ryan studied her face. The vulnerability there nearly killed him. Victoria Hale, billionaire CEO, asking him to stay like she was afraid he'd disappear. Okay, he said quietly. Okay. They moved to the bed. Ryan sat with his back against the headboard. Victoria curled against his side, her head on his shoulder, exactly like that morning at the beach 7 years ago. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Then Victoria said, Tell me about that night. The night you met Lily's mother. Ryan stiffened. Why? Because I need to understand. I need to know if you were trying to replace me, or forget me, or punish me. I wasn't trying to do anything except stop feeling like my chest was caving in. Victoria's fingers traced patterns on his shirt. Did it work? No. I woke up the next morning and you were still the only thing I could think about. And then 2 months later, this woman showed up at my apartment with a positive pregnancy test and a face I could barely remember. Did she want to keep it? She wanted me to write her a check so she could not keep it. Victoria went very still. I asked her to wait, Ryan continued, to think about it, to at least meet with me a few more times before making a decision. She said no. Said she'd already made up her mind, so I did the only thing I could think of. You offered to raise the baby yourself. I begged her, told her I'd take full custody, full responsibility. She'd never have to see either of us again. She could walk away and pretend it never happened. And she agreed. She signed the papers before Lily was even born. Haven't seen her since the hospital. Victoria lifted her head to look at him. Do you ever wonder if Lily asks about her? She doesn't. I think she knows somehow that asking would hurt me. which is ridiculous because she's 11 and she shouldn't have to protect my feelings. She sounds wise beyond her years. She's had to be. Single father working 2 jobs doesn't leave much room for childhood innocence. You're a good father, Ryan. I'm a tired father. There's a difference. Victoria was quiet for a moment. Then, when Lily was born, I was at the hospital. Did you know that? Ryan's heart stuttered. What? Your dad called everyone, said you were having a baby. Emergency situation. We all rushed over, and I stood in that waiting room for 6 hours, watching the door, waiting for you to come out with her. I didn't know you were there. I made sure you didn't. I hid in the corner behind Margaret and your sister, and when you finally came out, her voice cracked. You looked destroyed, like someone had ripped your heart out and handed you something precious in exchange, and you didn't know which emotion to feel first. Ryan remembered that moment. The weight of Lily in his arms, the terror, the overwhelming love, the grief for everything he'd lost mixed with wonder at everything he'd gained. I wanted to hate you, Victoria whispered, standing there with another woman's baby, moving on with your life while I was still stuck in the moment we ended. But I couldn't, because even from across the room, I could see how much you already loved her. Victoria, I left before you saw me, went home and cried for 3 days. Then I threw myself into work and didn't let myself think about you for months. Did it work? What do you think? Ryan pulled her closer. I'm sorry. For all of it. For not fighting harder. For letting you go. Don't. Victoria pressed her fingers against his mouth. We both made choices. We both thought we were doing the right thing. Being sorry doesn't change anything. Then what does? I don't know yet. They lapsed into silence again. Outside, the storm continued. Inside, the warmth of the bed and the rhythm of each other's breathing created a bubble that felt almost safe. Almost. Ryan? Victoria said after a while. Yeah? What happens tomorrow? I don't know. We can't keep doing this, pretending in front of everyone, falling apart in private. It's not sustainable. I know. So what do we do? Ryan closed his eyes. Tell the truth, maybe. Just like that? Walk downstairs and announce we've been in love for 7 years? Why not? Because it's insane. Because your daughter will have questions. Because my mother will have opinions. Because everyone will want to know why we lied for so long. Let them ask. You're not thinking clearly. I'm thinking more clearly than I have in years. Ryan shifted so he could look at her. What's the worst that could happen? They judge us. They already think we hate each other. They get upset. They're getting divorced anyway. They tell us we're making a mistake. We're the only ones who get to decide that. Victoria stared at him. You're serious? Completely. You want to tell everyone tonight, tomorrow morning at breakfast, when everyone's trapped together and can't run away. That's your plan? Ambush them? You have a better idea? Victoria opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. No, I don't. Then we do it my way. Your way is chaos. My way is honest. They looked at each other for a long moment. Then Victoria started laughing, a broken, slightly hysterical sound that made Ryan smile despite everything. We're really doing this, she said. We're really doing this. We're going to walk downstairs tomorrow morning and blow up our entire family dynamic. Seems like it's already pretty blown up. Fair point. Victoria's laughter faded. What about Lily? I'll talk to her first, before breakfast. She deserves to hear it from me. And if she hates the idea, then we figure it out. Together. Ryan touched her face. I'm not asking you to be her mother, Victoria. I'm not asking you to fix my life or make everything perfect. I'm just asking you to give us a chance. A chance at what? At being happy. At not wasting any more time. At seeing if what we had 7 years ago is still there. It's there, Victoria said quietly. I felt it the moment I walked into this cabin. So did I. I'm terrified. Me too. What if we're making a mistake? What if we're not? Victoria searched his face like she was looking for doubt, for hesitation, for any sign that he wasn't sure. But Ryan had never been more sure of anything in his life. Okay, Victoria said finally. Okay, we tell them tomorrow. You're sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. Ryan kissed her forehead. That's my girl. I was never not your girl, Ryan. That was the problem. They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, Victoria's head on Ryan's chest, his fingers tangled in her hair. 7 years of distance erased in one night. When Ryan woke a few hours later, disoriented in the unfamiliar room, his first instinct was panic. He needed to get back to Lily before she woke up, before she realized he was gone. He tried to extract himself from Victoria's embrace, but she tightened her grip without waking. 5 more minutes, she mumbled. I have to go. Don't care. Stay. Lily, we'll understand. But Ryan knew better. He carefully disentangled himself, tucking the blanket around Victoria's shoulders. She made a soft sound of protest but didn't wake. For a moment, Ryan just looked at her, hair spread across the pillow, face relaxed in sleep. So different from the controlled, guarded woman she showed the world. Beautiful. He made it back to his room just as the sky was beginning to lighten. Lily was still asleep, curled on her side with her stuffed rabbit clutched to her chest. Ryan sat on the edge of the bed, watching his daughter sleep, trying to figure out how to explain what was about to happen. Hey, sweetheart, you know that woman I've been pretending to hate for your entire life? Turns out I'm in love with her. Surprise. Yeah, that would go over well. Daddy? Lily's voice was sleepy. Where were you? Ryan's heart jumped. What do you mean? I woke up and you weren't here. I just went to get some water. I'm right here now. Lily sat up, rubbing her eyes. You're a bad liar. What? You always touch your ear when you lie. You've done it my whole life. Ryan's hand dropped from his ear. When had his daughter become so perceptive? Lily, were you with Aunt Victoria? The question hit like a punch. Why would you think that? Because you look at her the way people look at each other in movies, before they kiss. Ryan couldn't breathe. Sweetheart, It's okay, Daddy. Lily scooted closer, taking his hand. I'm not mad. You're not? No, I think it's nice. Nice? You're always sad. Even when you smile, but yesterday when you were fighting with Aunt Victoria, you looked different, like you were feeling something instead of just being tired all the time. Ryan pulled his daughter into his arms, overwhelmed. When did you get so smart? I pay attention. You taught me that. I did, didn't I? They sat in silence for a moment. Then Lily said, Do you love her? Ryan could have lied, could have deflected, could have said it was complicated. Instead, he said, Yes, I do. Does she love you? She says she does. Then why do you pretend to hate each other? Because we thought we were protecting people, making things easier for the family. That's dumb. Ryan laughed despite himself. Yeah, it really is. So are you going to stop pretending now? I think so, if that's okay with you. Lily pulled back to look at him. Why do you need my permission? Because you're the most important person in my life. And if this bothers you, if you don't want me to be with Victoria, then I won't. Daddy, that's the dumbest thing you've ever said. Excuse me? You think I want you to be alone and sad forever? Just because of me? Lily, no. Her voice was surprisingly firm for an 11-year-old. You're always taking care of me. You work all the time. You never do anything fun. You won't even go on dates because you say you don't have time. But I know the real reason. Ryan's throat tightened. What's the real reason? You're scared. Scared of being happy because you think it means you're not being a good dad. The accuracy of it nearly broke him. But you know what? Lily continued. I want you to be happy. I want you to smile for real instead of pretending. I want you to have someone who makes you laugh. And if that person is Aunt Victoria, then good. She seems nice when she's not being mean to you. Ryan couldn't speak. He just held his daughter and tried not to cry. I'm proud of you, he finally managed. For what? For being a better person than I am. I learned from the best. They sat together until the sun came up. Then Lily said, Are you going to tell everyone today? At breakfast, Victoria and I decided last night. Is she scared? Terrified. Are you? More than I've been in years. Good, Lily said matter-of-factly. Being scared means it matters. Ryan kissed the top of her head. You're way too wise for 11. I get it from you. I think you get it from yourself, sweetheart. Downstairs, he could hear people starting to move around, coffee brewing, voices murmuring, the cabin coming to life. Ryan took a deep breath. You ready for this? I'm not the one who has to do anything, Lily pointed out. You're the one who has to tell everyone you're in love. Thanks for the reminder. You're welcome. They got dressed and headed downstairs together. The main room was already crowded. Claire was making pancakes. Mark was stoking the fire. The kids were running around. Thomas and Margaret sat at opposite ends of the couch, not touching, and Victoria stood by the window with a cup of coffee, looking like she hadn't slept at all. Their eyes met. Ryan nodded slightly. Victoria's hand tightened on her mug. "Morning, everyone," Ryan said, his voice steadier than he felt. "Morning," Claire called from the kitchen. "Pancakes will be ready in 10 minutes. Coffee's already made if you want some." "Actually," Ryan said, "before breakfast, Victoria and I need to talk to everyone about something." The room went quiet. Claire stopped flipping pancakes. Mark froze mid-poke at the fire. Thomas and Margaret looked up. Even the kids stopped running. "This sounds serious," Claire said slowly. "It is," Victoria said, moving to stand beside Ryan. "We should have said something years ago, but we thought we were protecting everyone." Thomas stood up. "Maybe we should send the kids upstairs." "No," Ryan said. "They can stay. This affects everyone." Margaret's face had gone pale. "Ryan, what's going on?" Ryan looked at Victoria. She looked back. And in that moment, all the fear fell away. What was the worst that could happen? They'd already lost 7 years. They'd already survived the worst possible outcome. Anything else was just details. "Victoria and I were together," Ryan said clearly. 7 years ago, before you two started dating, we were in love. The silence was deafening. "We ended it," Victoria continued, her voice shaking slightly. "When you started getting serious, we thought it would be too complicated, too awkward. We thought we were doing the right thing. So we've spent 7 years pretending to hate each other," Ryan finished. "Pretending we felt nothing, lying to everyone including ourselves, and we're done." Claire dropped her spatula. "What?" "We're done lying," Victoria said. "We're done pretending. We're done sacrificing what we want for a relationship that's falling apart anyway." Margaret flinched like she'd been slapped. "You told them," Thomas said to Ryan. "You knew?" Claire's voice rose. "You knew they were together and you just let them?" "I suspected," Thomas corrected. "I never asked because I thought they'd made their choice." "What choice?" Margaret's voice was barely a whisper. "What choice did they make?" "To protect you," Ryan said. "To protect your relationship. To not make things weird or complicated. To put the family first." "That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard," Claire said, echoing Lily's earlier assessment. "We know that now," Victoria said. "But at the time it seemed right. Noble, even." "Noble," Margaret repeated. "You destroyed yourselves to be noble." "Apparently." Margaret stood up, moving toward Victoria. For a moment, Ryan thought she might yell, might cry, might tell them both how selfish they'd been. Instead, she pulled Victoria into a fierce hug. "I'm so sorry," Margaret said, her voice breaking. "I'm so sorry you thought you had to do that." Victoria's composure cracked. She hugged her mother back, tears streaming down her face. Thomas moved to Ryan, gripping his shoulder. "I meant what I said last night. Don't waste any more time." "I won't," Ryan said. "We won't." Claire was still staring at them like they'd grown extra heads. "I have so many questions." "Ask them later," Mark said, putting his arm around her. "I think they've had enough interrogation for one morning. But, later, Claire." Lily, who'd been watching everything with wide eyes, walked over to Victoria and tugged on her sleeve. Victoria looked down, wiping her eyes. "Hi, Lily. Are you going to make my dad happy?" Victoria glanced at Ryan, then back at Lily. "I'm going to try." "Good. Because he's been sad for a really long time and he won't admit it." "I think I've been sad for a really long time too. Then maybe you can be happy together." Victoria's face crumpled. She knelt down so she was eye level with Lily. "Is that okay with you? If I try to be part of your family? Are you going to be nice to my dad? I'm going to do my best. And you're not going to leave." "Not if I can help it." Lily studied her for a long moment. Then she threw her arms around Victoria's neck. Victoria caught her, startled, looking up at Ryan with something like wonder in her eyes. Ryan felt his heart crack open. This was what he'd been missing. Not just Victoria, not just love, but the possibility of a family that wasn't built on sacrifice and survival. A family that was built on choice. The pancakes burned. Nobody cared. They stood in the main room of the cabin, broken, complicated, messy, and started the hard work of being honest. And for the first time in 7 years, Ryan let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, they could figure out how to be happy. The euphoria lasted exactly 3 hours. By lunch, reality had set in hard enough to leave bruises. Ryan sat at the kitchen table with cold coffee, while Victoria paced the length of the cabin, her phone pressed to her ear. She'd been on conference calls for the past hour, some crisis with a product launch, a board member threatening to resign, something about patent infringement in Singapore. Her voice had that clipped corporate edge that made Ryan's chest tighten. This was her real life. Not pancakes in a mountain cabin, not declarations of love in front of confused family members, but board meetings and billion-dollar decisions and problems that existed on a scale Ryan couldn't begin to comprehend. "I need to fly back," Victoria said, ending the call and turning to face him. "Tonight, if possible. Tomorrow morning at the latest." Ryan's stomach dropped. "The roads aren't even clear yet." "They will be by tomorrow." The service said, "You just told everyone we're together. You told Lily you wouldn't leave." "I said I wouldn't leave if I could help it." "I can't help this, Ryan. This is my company, my responsibility." "Right, your company." The words came out bitter. Victoria's eyes flashed. "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Make me feel guilty for having a career, for being successful." "I'm not." "Yes, you are. You're doing exactly what you did 7 years ago, making me choose between you and everything else. That's not fair." "Isn't it?" Victoria moved closer, her voice dropping. "You want me here, playing house, being the supportive girlfriend or whatever this is. But that's not who I am, Ryan. I built something. I have people depending on me. I can't just ignore that because we finally stopped lying to each other." Ryan stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. "I'm not asking you to ignore it. I'm asking you to figure out if there's room in your life for anything besides work. And I'm asking you to figure out if you can handle being with someone whose life doesn't revolve around you." The words hung in the air like smoke. From the living room, Lily's laughter drifted over. She was playing cards with Claire's kids, oblivious to the fact that the adults were already falling apart. "This is why it didn't work before," Ryan said quietly. "We want different things." "No. We wanted the same thing, and we were too scared to fight for it." Victoria's voice cracked. "Don't tell me you're giving up already." "I'm not giving up. I'm being realistic." "Realistic is just another word for scared. Maybe I am scared. Maybe I'm terrified that I just blew up my entire life for someone who's going to get on a plane and remember why she doesn't need me." Victoria stepped back like he'd hit her. "You think I don't need you? I think you've survived 7 years without me just fine. Better than fine. You became one of the most powerful women in tech. And I was miserable." Victoria's eyes glistened. "Every single day, Ryan, every achievement felt empty. Every success felt hollow, because none of it mattered if I couldn't share it with you." "Then why are you leaving?" "Because I don't know how to be anything else." The confession exploded out of her. "I don't know how to be the woman who stays, who puts her life on hold, who sacrifices her career for love. I watched my mother do that, and she ended up divorced and lonely, and—" She cut herself off, but the damage was done. Ryan's jaw tightened. "I would never ask you to be like Margaret. But you're asking me to choose. Stay here or go back to work. Be with you or be successful. That's the choice, isn't it?" "That's not what I said. It's what you meant." Ryan ran his hands through his hair, frustration boiling over. "What do you want me to say, Victoria? That it's fine? That I'm okay with you leaving 24 hours after we finally admitted we're in love? That I'll just wait around until your next crisis passes and maybe you'll have time for me? I want you to trust me. I want you to believe that I can figure this out. That we can figure this out." "How? You live in 3 different cities. I live in a 1-bedroom apartment and work nights. Where exactly do we fit together?" "I don't know yet, but I'm willing to try if you are." Ryan wanted to say yes, wanted to be the guy who believed in love conquering all, but he'd been that guy once before, and it had destroyed him. "I need to think," he said instead. Victoria's face crumpled. "You need to think about whether you want to be with me?" I need to think about whether we're doing this again, getting swept up in the moment without considering the reality. We tried that before, remember? Didn't end well. We didn't try anything before, we just gave up. Maybe we gave up for a good reason. The words came out harsher than Ryan intended. He saw them land, saw Victoria flinch, saw something close off in her expression. "Fine," she said, her voice going cold. "Think all you want. I have work to do." She walked away before Ryan could respond. He heard her footsteps on the stairs, heard her bedroom door close with a click that sounded final. "Well," Claire said from the doorway, "that went great." Ryan turned to find his sister leaning against the frame, arms crossed. "How long were you listening?" "Long enough. You want to tell me what the hell that was?" "A fight. People fight. People who've been together for years fight. People who just got together 3 hours ago should still be in the honeymoon phase." Ryan sank back into his chair. "There is no honeymoon phase. There's just reality." Claire moved into the kitchen, pouring herself coffee. "You know what your problem is? I'm sure you're about to tell me. You're so busy protecting yourself from getting hurt that you won't let yourself be happy." "That's not true, isn't it? You spent 7 years convinced you couldn't be with Victoria because of Dad and Margaret. Now Dad and Margaret are getting divorced, and you're finding new reasons why it can't work. The reasons are legitimate. The reasons are excuses." Claire sat across from him. "She has a demanding job. So what? You have a demanding job. You have a daughter. You have responsibilities. But you know what else you have?" "What?" "Someone who loves you enough to blow up her entire world just to be honest about it. Someone who stood in that living room this morning and told everyone the truth, even though it was terrifying. Someone who's been waiting 7 years for you to stop being noble and start being human." Ryan stared at his coffee. "What if it doesn't work?" "What if it does?" "Claire, no, I'm serious. What if you let yourself try and it actually works? What if Victoria figures out how to balance her career and her personal life? What if you figure out how to let someone help you instead of doing everything alone? What if Lily gets a mother figure who actually loves her? What if you get to be happy?" "I am happy." "You're surviving. There's a difference." Ryan thought about Lily's words from that morning. "You're always sad, even when you smile." His daughter saw it. His sister saw it. Probably everyone saw it, except him. "I don't know how to do this," Ryan admitted quietly. "Do what?" "Let someone in. Trust that they'll stay. Believe that I deserve—" He stopped. "Deserve what?" "Anything good." Claire reached across the table and gripped his hand. "Ryan, you've spent 11 years raising Lily alone, working yourself to exhaustion, putting everyone else first. If anyone deserves something good, it's you." "But what if I mess it up? What if I'm not enough for her? What if she's not enough for you?" Ryan's head snapped up. "What? You're so worried about being enough for this brilliant, successful woman. But have you stopped to think that maybe she's worried about the same thing? That maybe she's terrified she can't be the partner you need? That her life is too complicated, too demanding, too much?" Ryan hadn't thought about it that way. "She's scared too," Claire continued. "She's just better at hiding it behind work and walls and that ice queen thing she does. But I saw her face this morning when Lily hugged her. She looked like someone had given her something she didn't know she was allowed to want. What do I do? Stop thinking. Start doing. Go upstairs and tell her you're sorry for being an idiot. Tell her you're scared but you want to try anyway. Tell her you'll figure it out together because that's what people who love each other do." "It's not that simple." "It is exactly that simple. You're the one making it complicated." Ryan sat in silence for a long moment. Then he pushed back from the table. "If this blows up in my face, I'm blaming you." "Noted." He climbed the stairs slowly, rehearsing what he'd say. "I'm sorry. I'm scared. I want to try. Please don't give up on me." But when he reached Victoria's room, he could hear her voice through the door. Still on the phone, still handling crises, still being the woman who ran a billion-dollar company. Ryan raised his hand to knock, hesitated. This was her world. Conference calls and board meetings and problems that required immediate solutions. Where did he fit in that? A warehouse manager from a small town, a single father who'd never been on a plane, someone whose biggest crisis was usually trying to figure out how to pay rent and electricity in the same month. They were from different universes. Ryan lowered his hand and walked back downstairs. By evening, the tension in the cabin was suffocating. Victoria had locked herself in her room. Ryan had taken Lily outside to build a snowman, mostly to escape the pitying looks from his family. Thomas and Margaret had announced their divorce officially, which somehow felt anticlimactic given everything else that had happened. Claire cornered Ryan by the fire after dinner. "Did you talk to her?" "She was busy." "That's not what I asked." "I tried, okay? She was on the phone." "So wait until she's off the phone." "It's been 6 hours, Claire. She's not getting off the phone." His sister studied him. "Or you're using that as an excuse not to talk to her." Maybe she was right. Maybe Ryan was a coward. Maybe he was protecting himself by assuming the worst before Victoria could prove him wrong. Or maybe he was just tired of fighting for things that seemed impossible. "I'm going to bed," Ryan said, standing up. "It's 8 o'clock. I'm tired." "You're running away." "Good night, Claire." He collected Lily from the loft. She'd fallen asleep on the couch watching movies with her cousins, and carried her to their room. She stirred as he tucked her in. "Did you and Aunt Victoria have a fight?" she mumbled. Ryan's chest tightened. "Sort of." "Are you going to fix it?" "I don't know how." "Say you're sorry. That's what you always tell me to do." "It's more complicated than that, sweetheart." "No, it's not. You love her. She loves you. Everything else is just details." From the mouths of babes, again. "Go to sleep," Ryan said, kissing her forehead. "Promise you'll fix it." "I'll try." "That's not a promise." "It's the best I can do right now." Lily was asleep before Ryan left the room. He stood in the hallway, staring at Victoria's closed door. Light still showed underneath. She was still awake. Ryan took 3 steps toward her room, stopped, turned around, and went back to bed. He was a coward after all. Sometime after midnight, Ryan gave up on sleep. He pulled on sweatpants and padded into the main room, intending to make tea or stare at the dying fire, or do anything except lie in the dark thinking about Victoria. But she was already there. She sat curled in one of the oversized armchairs, wrapped in a blanket, staring out at the snow-covered lake. Her face was blotchy like she'd been crying. Her hair was a mess. She looked exhausted. She looked beautiful. "Can't sleep either?" Ryan said quietly. Victoria jumped, turning to face him. "You scared me." "Sorry." They stared at each other for a long moment. Then Victoria said, "I'm flying out tomorrow morning. The roads are clear enough. I called a car service." Ryan's heart sank. "Okay. That's it? Just okay? What do you want me to say?" "I want you to ask me to stay. I want you to fight for this. I want you to stop assuming the worst and give us a chance." "I'm not assuming the worst. I'm being realistic about our lives." "Realistic." Victoria spat the word like it tasted bad. "You keep saying that. Like it's virtuous. Like giving up before we even try is somehow noble." "I'm not giving up." "Then what are you doing?" Ryan moved closer, his frustration building. "I'm trying to protect us both from another 7 years of pain. I'm trying to be smart about this instead of just diving in and hoping for the best." "But that's what love is, Ryan. It's diving in. It's hoping for the best. It's being terrified and doing it anyway." "That's what 23-year-olds think love is. We're in our 30s now. We have responsibilities. We have lives that don't easily mesh. We have excuses," Victoria cut in. "We have excuses. That's all you're giving me. Excuses wrapped up in logic." "And what are you giving me? Empty promises that you'll make time for us between board meetings and international flights?" Victoria stood up, the blanket falling to the floor. "You want to know what I'm giving you? I'm giving you the truth. The truth is that, yes, my job is demanding. Yes, I travel constantly. Yes, there will be times when I have to choose between a crisis at work and being here. But I'm willing to try. I'm willing to figure out how to balance everything because you matter more than any of it. Today you couldn't balance it. You chose work. I handled one conference call, Ryan. One. And you're acting like I abandoned you. Because it felt like you did. The confession came out raw. I finally let myself believe we could have this. And 3 hours later, you were on the phone talking about flying back to your real life. "My real life," Victoria repeated slowly. "Is that what you think? That this isn't real? That what we have here is some kind of fantasy? Isn't it? This cabin, this snow, this bubble where nothing else matters. That's not real life, Victoria. Real life is Lily's school schedule and my warehouse shifts and your board meetings. Real life is complicated and messy and worth fighting for, Victoria interrupted. Real life is worth fighting for, Ryan, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Ryan shook his head. I can't do this. I can't watch you leave tomorrow and spend the next week wondering when I'll see you again. If I'll see you again. So that's it? You'd rather end things now than try? I'd rather protect Lily from getting attached to someone who might not stick around. Victoria's face went white. You think I would hurt her? I think you have a life that makes it very easy to disappear, and Lily's already lost one mother. I can't let her lose another. I'm not her mother. No, you're not. The words came out cold. You're a woman I used to know who built an empire instead of a life. Ryan regretted it the moment he said it, saw the words hit Victoria like physical blows, saw her flinch, saw tears spring to her eyes. Take it back, she whispered. Victoria, take it back. But Ryan couldn't, because part of him meant it. Part of him believed that Victoria's success was a wall she'd built to avoid dealing with the messy reality of relationships and feelings and vulnerability. Part of him was wrong. Part of him was cruel. I think you should go tomorrow, Ryan said instead. I think we both need space to figure out what we really want. I know what I want. I want you. You want the idea of me, the fantasy. But you don't want the reality of dating a single father who can barely make rent, who doesn't fit into your world, who… Stop it. Victoria's voice broke. Stop putting words in my mouth. Stop deciding what I want. Stop being so goddamn scared that you push away the only person who's ever really loved you. The truth of it stole Ryan's breath. You're right, Victoria continued, tears streaming down her face. I built an empire. I worked myself half to death. I filled every moment with meetings and acquisitions and decisions because if I was busy enough, I didn't have to feel the hole you left. I didn't have to admit that no amount of success would ever fill it. But that doesn't mean I don't want this. It doesn't mean I don't want you and Lily and messy, complicated real life. Then prove it, Ryan said. Stay. Cancel your flight. Tell your board to handle it themselves. Stay here and show me that we're more important than your next crisis. Victoria stared at him. You're really asking me to choose? I'm asking you to prioritize. That's the same thing. No, it's not. Yes, it is. Victoria wiped her eyes angrily. You're asking me to prove I love you by sacrificing my career, by being less than what I am, by making myself small enough to fit into the life you think we should have. I'm not asking you to be small. Then what are you asking? Ryan didn't have an answer, because she was right. He was asking her to choose, asking her to prove her love by giving up pieces of herself, just like he'd asked her to do 7 years ago. I can't win with you, Victoria said quietly. If I stay, I'm abandoning my responsibilities. If I go, I'm abandoning you. There's no right answer because you've already decided I'm going to fail. That's not true, isn't it? You're so convinced that I'm going to hurt you that you're creating a situation where I can't possibly succeed. It's a test I'm designed to fail. Ryan wanted to argue, wanted to deny it, but somewhere deep down, he knew she was right. I'm going to bed, Victoria said, her voice hollow. And tomorrow, I'm getting on that plane. Not because I don't love you, but because I can't be with someone who's determined to see the worst in me. She walked away before Ryan could respond. He stood alone in the dark cabin, listening to her footsteps fade, wondering how he'd managed to destroy everything in less than 24 hours. Morning came too soon. Ryan woke to the sound of car tires crunching on snow. He looked out the window to see a black SUV pulling into the driveway. Victoria's ride. He should get up, should go downstairs, should say something before she left. Instead, he lay in bed and listened to the sounds of her departure. Footsteps on the stairs, muffled goodbyes. The front door opening and closing, the car driving away. Gone. She left, Lily said from her bed. Ryan turned to find his daughter watching him with knowing eyes. Yeah, she had work. You didn't say goodbye. She was in a hurry. You had a fight. It wasn't a question. Ryan sat up, running his hands through his hair. Yeah, we had a fight. About what? About everything. about whether we can make this work. Can you? I don't know, sweetheart. Lily was quiet for a moment. Then she said, You told me once that anything worth having is worth fighting for. I did say that. So why aren't you fighting for her? Ryan didn't have a good answer. He had excuses, reasons, logic, but no real answer. It's complicated, he said finally. You always say that when you're scared. Maybe I am scared. Of what? Of failing, of getting hurt, of letting Lily get hurt, of not being enough, of trying his hardest and still losing, of being happy. I don't want to talk about it right now, Ryan said. Lily didn't push. She just climbed out of bed and hugged him. I'm sorry, Daddy. For what? That grown-ups make everything so hard. Ryan pulled her close. Yeah, me too. They spent the day preparing to leave. The roads were clear. Thomas and Margaret were driving back separately, the divorce making shared space uncomfortable. Claire and her family were heading home. Everyone was ready to escape the cabin and the memories it now held. Ryan packed mechanically, listening to Lily chatter about school and friends, and everything except Victoria. She was being kind, giving him space, being more mature than he deserved. By mid-afternoon, they were loaded up and ready to go. Ryan took one last look at the cabin, at the deck where he'd kissed Victoria, at the window where they'd talked at midnight, at the living room where they'd told everyone the truth. 24 hours. That's all they'd had. 24 hours of honesty before fear and old patterns destroyed it. The drive home was quiet. Lily dozed in the passenger seat. Ryan drove on autopilot, his mind replaying every conversation with Victoria, every fight, every moment he could have chosen differently. He was home before he knew it. Back to his one-bedroom apartment with the leaky faucet and the noisy neighbors. Back to reality. His phone buzzed as he was unloading the car. A text from an unknown number. I lied. When I said I built an empire instead of a life, the truth is I built an empire because I didn't know how to build a life without you. But I'm tired of being scared. I'm tired of running. I'm tired of protecting myself from the one thing I actually want. So here's what I'm offering. I'll try if you try. I'll show up if you show up. I'll fight if you fight, but I can't do it alone. The ball's in your court, Ryan. Don't wait 7 more years to decide what to do with it. V. Ryan read it 3 times. Then he looked at Lily, who was watching him with hopeful eyes. What? He said. Is it from her? How did you... You have your thinking face on. You only make that face when it's important. Ryan looked at the message again. The ball's in your court. What should I do? He asked his daughter. Lily smiled. What do you want to do? For the first time in days, maybe years, Ryan knew the answer. He wanted to fight. Ryan didn't text back right away. He stood in the parking lot of his apartment building, phone in hand, while Lily dragged their bags toward the entrance. The January cold bit through his jacket, but he barely felt it. I'll try if you try. 4 simple words that required the most complicated answer. Daddy, I'm freezing, Lily called from the doorway. Sorry, sweetheart, coming. He pocketed his phone and grabbed the remaining bags. Inside their apartment, everything was exactly as they'd left it 3 days ago. Dishes in the sink. Lily's homework scattered on the coffee table. The thermostat turned down to save money. Home. Except it didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a box he'd been living in, convincing himself it was enough. Lily disappeared into her room to unpack. Ryan stood in the middle of the living room, Victoria's text burning a hole in his pocket. He could ignore it. Go back to his routine. Warehouse shifts and parent-teacher conferences and pretending the cabin had never happened. It would be easier, safer. He pulled out his phone. His fingers hovered over the keyboard for a solid minute before he typed, I'm sorry for what I said. About the empire instead of a life. That was cruel and I didn't mean it. He hit send before he could overthink it. 3 dots appeared immediately. Then, yes, you did. Part of you meant it. That's what made it hurt. Ryan winced. She was right. Again. You're right, he typed. I'm scared that I'm not enough, that my life isn't enough, that I'll never be able to give you what you deserve. The response came faster this time. I don't want what I deserve. I want you. There's a difference. I don't know how to do this, how to fit into your world. Then don't fit into my world. Build one with me. Ryan stared at that message for a long time. Build one with me. Like it was that simple. Like they could just decide to create something new instead of trying to force themselves into lives that didn't have room for each other. I want to try, he typed, but I need time to figure out how. How much time? Good question. How much time did it take to stop being terrified, to learn to trust that happiness wasn't a trap waiting to spring? I don't know, he admitted. The dots appeared and disappeared 3 times before Victoria's response came through. Okay, take your time. I'm not going anywhere. It felt like a lie, like a promise neither of them could keep, but Ryan wanted to believe it anyway. Thank you, he sent back. No response came. Ryan waited 5 minutes, then 10, then gave up and started unpacking. The next week crawled by in a haze of work and exhaustion and trying not to think about Victoria. Ryan picked up extra shifts at the warehouse to distract himself. Lily went back to school and filled their evenings with stories about her friends and complaints about math homework. Normal life resumed, except nothing felt normal. Ryan caught himself checking his phone constantly, waiting for texts that didn't come. Victoria had said she'd give him time, and apparently she meant it. The silence should have been a relief. Instead, it felt like drowning. On Thursday night, Claire showed up at his apartment with takeout and determination. We need to talk, she announced, pushing past him into the living room. Hello to you too. Don't hello me. You look like garbage. Thanks. I missed you too. Claire set the food on the coffee table and turned to face him, hands on her hips. Have you talked to Victoria? Not since Sunday. Why not? Because I asked for time and she's giving it to me. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Ryan sank onto the couch. You keep saying that about everything I do. Because you keep doing dumb things. Claire sat beside him, her expression softening. What are you waiting for, Ryan? Permission? A sign? Someone to tell you it's okay to be happy? I don't know what I'm waiting for. Yes, you do. You're waiting for it to feel safe, for all the risk to disappear, for some guarantee that if you try, you won't get hurt. Ryan didn't argue because she was right. But that's not how it works, Claire continued. Love is never safe. It's terrifying and messy, and there are no guarantees. You just have to decide if the person is worth the risk. And if I decide wrong, then you'll survive. Just like you survived the last 7 years. Just like you survived becoming a single father at 21. You're stronger than you think, Ryan. You just refuse to believe it. Ryan leaned back against the couch, closing his eyes. What if I'm not strong enough for her world? What if she realizes I'm just some guy who manages a warehouse and can barely afford his rent? What if she doesn't care about any of that? Everyone cares about that stuff. Not everyone. Not the people who matter. Claire nudged his shoulder. Victoria built a billion-dollar company. You think money impresses her? You think she's looking for someone successful? She's already successful. What she's looking for is someone who sees her, someone who knew her before the empire, someone who loves her for who she is, not what she's worth. I do love her. Then tell her. Stop hiding behind excuses and tell her. I texted her. I said I wanted to try. Texting doesn't count. Grand gestures count. Showing up counts. Fighting for what you want counts. Ryan opened his eyes. What am I supposed to do? Fly to wherever she is and declare my love in front of her board of directors? Why not? Because that's insane. So is wasting another 7 years being miserable? They sat in silence while Ryan's mind raced. Grand gestures, showing up, fighting. I don't even know where she is, he said finally. Claire pulled out her phone, typed something, and showed him the screen. It was Victoria's Instagram, a verified account with millions of followers. The most recent post was from yesterday, a photo of a conference stage with the caption, Tech Summit NYC, Day 2, still caffeinated. New York. She was in New York. There, Claire said. Now you know where she is. I can't just show up in New York. Why not? Because I have work. And Lily has school. And I don't have money for a plane ticket. And you're scared. We've established that. But are you scared enough to let her go? Ryan thought about Victoria's text. I'm not going anywhere. But she was already gone, wasn't she? In New York, living her life while he sat in his apartment making excuses. I need to think about this, Ryan said. Claire stood up, frustration clear on her face. You've been thinking for 7 years, Ryan. At some point, you need to start doing. She left the takeout and went home, leaving Ryan alone with his thoughts. He didn't sleep that night, just lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to Lily's soft breathing from the other room. His daughter. His responsibility. The reason he couldn't just drop everything and chase after a woman who might not even want him anymore. Except Lily had told him to fight for Victoria, had practically begged him to try. "You deserve to be happy too, Daddy." The words echoed in his head until sunrise. Ryan called in sick to work Friday morning. Then he did something he hadn't done in years. He asked for help. His father agreed to watch Lily for the weekend without asking questions. Claire bought him a last-minute plane ticket, using her credit card points, refusing to take no for an answer. Mark drove him to the airport at 6 a.m. Saturday morning. "You're doing the right thing," Mark said as Ryan grabbed his backpack from the trunk. "I'm doing something insane." Sometimes they're the same thing. Ryan had never been on a plane before. The whole experience was overwhelming. The crowds, the security lines, the cramped seats, the sensation of being 30,000 feet in the air with nothing but faith keeping you from falling. He thought about turning back at least a dozen times. But then the plane landed at JFK and Ryan was swept into the chaos of New York City, and there was no turning back anymore. He'd never been here either. Never been anywhere, really. His whole life had been contained to their small town and the surrounding county. New York felt like another planet. Massive buildings, endless noise, people everywhere moving with purpose. Ryan pulled out his phone and opened Victoria's Instagram again. The tech summit was at the Javits Center. He had no idea where that was or how to get there, but his phone's GPS seemed confident. 45 minutes and one very expensive cab ride later, Ryan stood outside a massive glass building filled with people in expensive suits carrying laptops and coffee. He looked down at his worn jeans and old jacket. He looked like exactly what he was, someone who didn't belong here. Inside, the conference was even more intimidating. Booths and screens and demonstrations everywhere, people networking and pitching and making deals worth more than Ryan would earn in his lifetime. He felt every eye on him, judging, dismissing. He almost left. But then he saw a schedule board listing the day's speakers. Victoria's name was there. Main stage. 2 p.m. Panel discussion on women in tech leadership. Ryan checked his watch. 1:45. He had 15 minutes. The main stage area was already packed when Ryan arrived. Hundreds of people filling seats, standing in the aisles, clustering at the back. Ryan wedged himself into a corner where he could see the stage. At exactly 2 o'clock, the panel started. 5 women walked onto the stage, and Ryan's breath caught. Victoria looked different than she had at the cabin. Her hair was pulled back in a severe bun. She wore a black pantsuit that probably cost more than Ryan's car. Her expression was controlled, professional, unreadable. She looked like she belonged here, like she'd been born for this. And Ryan felt like an idiot for coming. What was he thinking? That she'd see him in the crowd and run off stage? That he could somehow fit into this world of brilliant, powerful people making brilliant, powerful decisions? He started to leave. But then the moderator asked Victoria a question, and she answered, and Ryan heard something in her voice that made him stop. "The question is about work-life balance," the moderator said. "As one of the youngest female billionaires in tech, how do you manage to have it all?" Victoria's laugh was sharp. "I don't. That's the honest answer. I don't have it all. I have my company. I have my work. And I've convinced myself for a long time that it was enough." The moderator looked surprised. This clearly wasn't the answer she'd expected. "But recently," Victoria continued, her voice softening slightly, "I've realized that success without connection is just empty. I built something incredible, something I'm proud of, but I built it at the expense of everything else, and I'm not sure that trade was worth it." Silence fell over the audience. "So what are you going to do about it?" the moderator asked. "I don't know yet. I'm still figuring it out. But I think the first step is admitting that you can be successful and still feel like you're failing at the things that actually matter." Ryan's chest tightened. She was talking about him, about them. In front of hundreds of people, Victoria was admitting that her empire wasn't enough. The panel continued, but Ryan barely heard the rest of it. He just watched Victoria, the way she held herself, the careful control that occasionally cracked, the moments when her eyes swept the crowd like she was looking for someone. When the panel ended, the audience erupted in applause. The speaker stood and shook hands, then started to leave the stage. Ryan pushed through the crowd, trying to reach the front, but there were too many people, networking, asking questions, taking photos. He was never going to reach her. Ryan? He spun around. Victoria stood 5 feet away, still in her severe black suit, staring at him like he might be a hallucination. "What are you doing here?" she asked. Ryan's prepared speech evaporated. All the things he'd planned to say on the plane disappeared. He was left with nothing but the truth. "I came to fight," he said. "What?" "You said you'd fight if I'd fight. So I'm here, fighting, probably doing it wrong, but I'm trying." Victoria's professional mask cracked. "Ryan, you can't just—" I know I can't just show up and expect everything to be fine. I know I said terrible things. I know I pushed you away because I was scared. I know I don't fit in your world and I probably never will." People were starting to stare. A few had their phones out, recording. Ryan didn't care. "But I love you," he continued. "I've loved you since I was 23 years old, and I've never stopped. And I'm tired of pretending that's not true. I'm tired of being noble. I'm tired of protecting myself. I'm just tired, Victoria, and the only thing that makes me feel alive is you." Victoria's eyes glistened. "You flew to New York." "I've never been on a plane before. It was terrifying, but not as terrifying as the thought of losing you again." "Ryan, I don't have a grand plan. I don't know how we make this work. I don't know how a warehouse manager from a small town and a billionaire CEO build a life together. But I want to try. I want to figure it out. I want to stop being scared and start being happy." A tear rolled down Victoria's cheek. "You really flew across the country to tell me this." "Claire bought the ticket, and my dad's watching Lily, and I called in sick to work, which I've never done before. And I probably look like an idiot standing here in my old jacket while you're in your—" Victoria kissed him. Right there in the middle of the tech summit, in front of hundreds of people, many of whom definitely had their phones out now. She grabbed his jacket and pulled him close and kissed him like nothing else mattered. When they finally broke apart, the crowd around them was applauding. "That was stupid," Victoria said against his mouth. "Which part?" "All of it. The plane, the speech, showing up here." "I know." "I loved every second of it." Ryan laughed, the sound shaky with relief. "Yeah?" "Yeah." Victoria stepped back, wiping her eyes. "But we need to talk. Somewhere private. Because I have things to say too, and I'd rather not do it in front of an audience." She grabbed his hand and pulled him through the crowd. People called after her, other panelists, journalists, people wanting her attention. Victoria ignored all of them. They ended up in a quiet corridor away from the main conference floor. Victoria leaned against the wall, still holding Ryan's hand like she was afraid he'd disappear. "I've been thinking too," she said, "about what you said at the cabin, about choosing between you and my career, and you were right." "Victoria, no, let me finish. You were right that I can't keep living the way I've been living, working 16-hour days, flying to 3 cities in a week, using busyness as a shield against feeling anything real. That's not sustainable. That's not a life. I shouldn't have made you choose. You didn't make me choose. You made me realize I needed to. Not between you and my career, but between the life I've been living and the life I actually want." Ryan studied her face. "What do you want?" "I want balance. I want to still run my company, but not let it consume me. I want to delegate more. I want to say no to things that don't matter. I want to make space for people I love instead of just work I'm good at." "That sounds hard." "It will be. I've spent 7 years building walls and now I have to tear them down. But I think I'm ready to try." "So what does that look like?" "Practically, I mean." Victoria took a breath. "I've been thinking about that. My main office is in San Francisco, but I could relocate to the East Coast. Maybe Boston, or even—" She hesitated. "Or even somewhere smaller, somewhere closer to you and Lily." Ryan's heart stuttered. "You'd move for us?" "I'd move for me, for the life I want. You and Lily are part of that life, the most important part. But your company is successful enough that I can run it from anywhere. We have offices in 6 cities. I can work remotely. I can travel less. I can hire a better executive team to handle the day-to-day operations." She squeezed his hand. "I've been the CEO who does everything herself for too long. Maybe it's time to trust other people." Ryan couldn't quite believe what he was hearing. "You've really thought about this?" I've thought about nothing else since I left the cabin. Every board meeting, every conference call, every minute I've spent working this week, I've been thinking about whether it's worth it, whether any of it is worth losing you again. And it's not. Nothing is worth that. They stood in silence for a moment, hands clasped, 7 years of pain slowly dissolving. I'm still scared, Ryan admitted. Me too. I'm still just a warehouse manager. And I'm still a workaholic with control issues. We're a mess, Ryan. Yeah, we are. But maybe that's okay. Maybe we don't need to be perfect. Maybe we just need to be honest. Ryan pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her. Victoria melted against him, her face pressed into his shoulder. I'm sorry, he said quietly, for pushing you away, for assuming the worst, for being so scared of getting hurt that I hurt you instead. I'm sorry too, for hiding behind work, for leaving when things got hard, for not fighting for us sooner. They held each other while the conference buzzed on somewhere in the distance, two broken people trying to figure out how to be whole together. So what happens now? Victoria asked eventually. Now we figure it out, one day at a time, together. No more running? No more running. No more 7-year silences? Never again. Victoria lifted her head to look at him. I need to finish the conference. It ends tomorrow. But then I'm coming home with you. I want to see where you live, meet Lily properly, start figuring out what our life looks like. You want to come to my tiny apartment? I want to see your life, Ryan. All of it. The good parts and the hard parts and everything in between. It's not glamorous. I don't want glamorous. I want real. Ryan kissed her forehead. Okay, then that's what you'll get. They walked back to the conference together, hands linked. People stared, phones appeared. Ryan heard whispers of, is that Victoria Hale? And who's that guy? Let them stare, let them wonder. For the first time in 7 years, Ryan didn't care what anyone thought. That night, Victoria canceled her hotel room and showed up at the small Airbnb Ryan had booked near the airport. It was nothing special, a basement studio with a questionable heater and furniture that looked like it came from a college dorm. Victoria took one look around and started laughing. What? Ryan asked. This is the least glamorous place I've been in years. It's perfect. They ordered pizza and ate it sitting on the floor because the apartment only had one chair. They talked until 3 in the morning about Lily, about Victoria's company, about how to merge their completely incompatible lives. They didn't have all the answers, but they had a starting point, and sometimes that was enough. Sunday afternoon, they flew back together. Victoria in her designer suit, Ryan in his worn jeans, both of them exhausted and terrified and hopeful. Thomas was waiting at the airport with Lily when they landed. Lily saw them first. Her face lit up, and she started running before Thomas could stop her. Daddy! Aunt Victoria! Victoria knelt down just in time to catch Lily's hug. Hi, sweetheart. You came back. I came back. Are you going to stay this time? Victoria looked up at Ryan. He nodded. I'm going to try, Victoria said. If that's okay with you, it's okay with me. Lily pulled back, suddenly serious. But you have to promise not to make my dad sad again. I promise to try my best, and your dad has to promise not to push me away when he gets scared. Lily looked at Ryan expectantly. I promise, Ryan said. Good. Lily grabbed both their hands. Now can we go home? Grandpa made me eat vegetables all weekend and I'm traumatized. Thomas laughed from where he'd been watching. You survived. Barely. On the drive back, Lily chattered endlessly about her weekend while Victoria listened with genuine interest. Ryan watched them in the rear-view mirror, his daughter, and the woman he loved, starting to build something that looked almost like family. It wasn't perfect. It wouldn't be perfect. There would be fights and struggles and moments when they both wanted to run. But for the first time in 7 years, Ryan thought maybe they could survive it. Maybe they could even be happy. When they reached Ryan's apartment, Victoria stood in the middle of the living room and looked around with the same expression she'd had at the Airbnb. It's small, Ryan said apologetically. It's home, Victoria corrected. Your home. And maybe, eventually, mine too. Lily tugged on Victoria's sleeve. Want to see my room? I'd love to. Ryan watched them disappear down the hall, Lily's excited voice explaining her stuffed animal collection. His phone buzzed with a text from Claire. Did you do it? Did you fight? Ryan smiled and typed back, Yeah, I fought. And? And we're figuring it out. That's all you're giving me? For now? 3 dots appeared, then, fine, but I expect details later. Proud of you, little brother. Ryan set his phone down and looked around his apartment. It was still small, still shabby, still barely adequate for 2 people, let alone 3. But Victoria was here, in his home, playing with his daughter, choosing this life even though she could have anything else in the world. And that made everything, the fear, the risk, the uncertainty, worth it. From Lily's room, he heard laughter. Victoria's voice saying something that made Lily giggle. The sound of 2 people who barely knew each other starting to become family. Ryan closed his eyes and let himself feel something he hadn't allowed in years. Hope. Hope turned out to be harder to maintain than Ryan expected. The first week after Victoria came back was good. She stayed in a hotel nearby but spent every evening at the apartment, helping Lily with homework, learning to navigate Ryan's cramped kitchen, falling asleep on his couch while he worked late shifts. It felt almost normal, almost like they were building something real. The second week, Victoria had to fly to San Francisco for 3 days. Emergency board meeting, crisis with a product launch. The usual. She called every night, but Ryan could hear the exhaustion in her voice, could hear her slipping back into the rhythm of 16-hour workdays and back-to-back meetings, could hear the guilt when she said she might need to stay an extra day. It's fine, Ryan told her, even though it wasn't. I'll be back Friday, I promise. I know, but Friday turned into Saturday, and Saturday turned into Sunday afternoon. When Victoria finally walked through his door, she looked hollowed out, dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, still wearing the same clothes she'd left in. I'm sorry, she said immediately. I know I said Friday, I know I promised, but the launch was a disaster and I couldn't just leave and… It's okay, Ryan said, even though they both knew he was lying. Lily looked up from her homework. Hi, Aunt Victoria. You look tired. I am tired, sweetheart. Daddy gets that look when he works too much, too. Victoria's eyes met Ryan's across the room. Something passed between them. An acknowledgement that this wasn't working, that good intentions weren't enough. That night, after Lily went to bed, they sat at Ryan's tiny kitchen table and had the conversation neither of them wanted to have. I can't do this, Victoria said quietly. The commute, the hotel, trying to be present here while running a company from across the country. I'm failing at both. Ryan's stomach dropped. So what are you saying? I'm saying I need to make a real decision, not just talk about changing my life, actually change it. What does that look like? Victoria took a breath. I'm stepping down as CEO. Ryan stared at her. What? Not leaving the company, but stepping back from day-to-day operations. Promoting my COO. Staying on as chairman, but letting someone else handle the crisis management and the constant travel and all the things that have been consuming my life. Victoria, you can't just… Yes, I can. I built this company from nothing. I get to decide what role I play in it now. And I'm deciding that I want a life outside of work, a real life, with you and Lily. Ryan couldn't speak. The magnitude of what she was saying felt impossible. I know it's a lot, Victoria continued. I know it seems crazy, but I've been thinking about it for weeks, even before the cabin, before we admitted we still loved each other. I've been burning out for years, Ryan, working myself to death trying to fill a hole that work was never going to fill. And I'm done. But your company will be fine. Better than fine. My COO is brilliant. She's been ready for this position for years. And I'll still be involved in the big decisions, still be on the board, still have equity. I'm not walking away. I'm just stepping back. Ryan searched her face for doubt, for regret, for any sign that she was doing this just for him and would resent him for it later. But all he saw was certainty. When? He asked. I'm making the announcement next week. Transition period will be 3 months. By summer, I'll be free. Free to do what? Whatever I want. Maybe start a venture capital firm focusing on women-led startups. Maybe teach. Maybe consult. Maybe just breathe for the first time in 7 years. She reached across the table and took his hand. Maybe build a life with you and Lily, if you'll still have me. Ryan's throat tightened. You're really doing this. I'm really doing this. What if you regret it? What if you wake up in 6 months and hate me for letting you throw away your career? Then we'll deal with it. But Ryan, I'm not throwing anything away. I'm choosing something better. There's a difference. They sat in silence while Ryan tried to process what was happening. Victoria was upending her entire life. For him. For them. For the possibility of something more than success and loneliness. I don't deserve this, he said finally. Probably not, but you're stuck with it anyway. Despite everything, Ryan laughed. You're insane. Completely. Is that a problem? No, it's not a problem. Victoria stood up and moved around the table to sit in his lap. Ryan wrapped his arms around her, burying his face in her shoulder. Thank you, he whispered. For what? For choosing us. For being brave enough to change. For not giving up on me even when I gave up on myself. I never gave up on you, Ryan. Not once in 7 years. They stayed like that until Ryan's phone alarm went off, reminding him he had to be at work in an hour. Night shift, the bane of his existence. Victoria pulled back, frowning. You're working tonight? Yeah. Sunday through Thursday, 11 to 7. That's terrible. That's life. Not anymore. Victoria's expression turned determined. Quit. Ryan blinked. What? Quit your job. Give notice. Whatever you need to do, but stop working yourself to death for a paycheck that barely covers rent. Victoria, I can't just quit. I have bills. I have Lily. I have me. You have me. And I have more money than we could spend in 10 lifetimes. So quit the job that's making you miserable and figure out what you actually want to do. I can't live off your money. Why not? I can't live off your emotional support? We're a team, Ryan. Teams share resources. That includes money. It's not that simple. It is exactly that simple. You're the one making it complicated. Ryan wanted to argue, wanted to cite pride and independence and all the reasons he couldn't accept help, but he was tired. So tired of working 2 jobs and barely sleeping and watching life pass by while he survived instead of lived. I'll think about it, he said finally. That's not a no. It's not a yes either. I'll take it. Victoria kissed him and then headed back to her hotel. Ryan went to work and spent the entire shift thinking about her offer, about what it would mean to quit, to have time, to figure out what he wanted instead of just doing what he had to do. It was terrifying. It was also tempting. 2 weeks later, Ryan gave his notice at the warehouse. His supervisor looked shocked. You've been here 11 years, man. You sure about this? I'm sure. What are you going to do? Good question. Ryan still didn't have a solid answer, but Victoria had convinced him that figuring it out was better than staying miserable. I'm going to take some time. Be present for my daughter. Maybe go back to school. Maybe start a business. I don't know yet. Must be nice, having that kind of freedom. It was nice. It was also weird and uncomfortable and made Ryan feel like a fraud. But every time he picked Lily up from school in the middle of the afternoon instead of rushing from day job to night shift, the guilt faded a little. Daddy! Lily shouted the first time he showed up at 3 p.m. What are you doing here? I quit my night job. I'm here every day now. Lily's face lit up like Christmas. Really? Really? She threw her arms around him so hard they both almost fell over. This is the best day ever. Ryan held his daughter and felt something unlock in his chest. This was what mattered. Not money or status or pride. Just being here. Being present. Being available. Victoria made good on her promise too. The announcement went out the following Monday. Victoria Hale stepping down as CEO after 7 years. Promoting her COO. Staying on as chairman. Industry publications went wild. Speculation ran rampant about why such a successful young CEO would step back. Ryan read the articles with a mix of pride and anxiety. People called it everything from a bold move to a massive mistake. But Victoria seemed unbothered by the commentary. Let them speculate, she said when Ryan brought it up. I know why I did it. That's all that matters. The transition period was chaos. Victoria was still traveling, still handling the handoff, still deeply involved in the company. But she was home more, present more, actually sleeping occasionally. And slowly, piece by piece, they started building a life. Victoria found an apartment 20 minutes from Ryan's place. Nothing extravagant, a 2-bedroom in a decent neighborhood. She said she wanted to be close to them without crowding them, wanted to have her own space to decompress. But most nights, she ended up at Ryan's apartment anyway, making dinner with Lily, helping with homework. curled up on the couch, watching bad TV while Ryan graded the online business courses he'd started teaching. Teaching had been Victoria's idea. Ryan had mentioned once that he'd always wanted to finish his business degree, maybe help other people avoid the mistakes he'd made. Victoria had made 3 calls, and within a week, Ryan had an adjunct position at the community college teaching intro to business management. The pay was terrible compared to the warehouse, but Ryan loved it, loved the students, loved helping people figure out their paths, loved having a job that ended at a reasonable hour and didn't leave him exhausted. "You're a natural," Victoria said one night after observing his class. "The students love you. They love that I grade easy. They love that you actually care, that you treat them like people instead of numbers." Ryan shrugged off this compliment, but he felt the warmth of it anyway. Life settled into a rhythm, not perfect, not smooth, but real. They fought sometimes, about money, about Victoria's lingering workaholic tendencies, about how to handle Lily's questions about whether Victoria was her stepmom or what, about Ryan's habit of shutting down when things got hard, about Victoria's habit of fixing things with money instead of presence. But they didn't run, didn't hide, didn't pretend the problems didn't exist. They fought and made up and learned each other's patterns, learned how to apologize, learned how to ask for what they needed instead of expecting the other person to read minds. 6 months after the cabin, on a random Tuesday in July, Lily asked the question that had been hanging in the air for weeks. They were eating dinner, takeout Chinese because none of them felt like cooking, when Lily looked up from her fried rice and said, "Are you guys going to get married?" Ryan choked on his water. Victoria froze mid-bite. "What?" Ryan managed. "Married, like in movies. You love each other, right? So doesn't that mean you get married?" "It's not that simple, sweetheart. Why not?" "Good question. Why wasn't it that simple?" Victoria set down her chopsticks. "Do you want us to get married, Lily? I want you to be happy, and you seem happier together than apart. So yeah, I think you should get married." "Marriage is a big deal," Ryan said. "It's a commitment. It means you promise to stay together. I know what marriage is, Dad. I'm not 5. I know you're not. I want to make sure you're okay with all of this. With Victoria being in our lives, with things changing." Lily rolled her eyes. "Things already changed. Victoria's here all the time. She helps me with homework. She taught me how to braid hair. She makes you smile more than I've ever seen. If you don't marry her, you're an idiot." Victoria burst out laughing. "I like her reasoning. She's 11. She doesn't understand the complexity." "What complexity?" Lily interrupted. "You love her. She loves you. You're both happier together. That's not complex. That's math." Ryan looked at Victoria. She looked back, something soft and vulnerable in her expression. "She makes a compelling argument," Victoria said. "You're not helping. I'm not trying to help. I'm trying to see if you're going to say what I think you're going to say." "Which is?" "That you want to marry me, but you're scared to ask because you think I'll say no." The accuracy of it stole Ryan's breath. "See?" Lily said triumphantly. "Even Victoria knows you're being dumb about this." "Lily, language. You say dumb all the time. That's different." "How?" Ryan didn't have a good answer. He looked at Victoria, at this brilliant, complicated woman who'd upended her entire life to be here, who helped his daughter with math homework and made terrible coffee and fit into their messy life like she'd always belonged. "Do you want to get married?" he asked. Victoria's smile was slow and devastating. "Are you asking?" "Not officially, just testing the waters." "Well, my unofficial answer is that I've been waiting 7 years for you to ask me officially. So, yes, whenever you're ready to actually do it, yes." Lily pumped her fist. "Finally, can I be the flower girl?" "Absolutely," Victoria said. "Can I help pick the dress?" "I'm not sure your dad has asked me yet." "He will. He's just being dramatic about it." Ryan couldn't help but laugh. His daughter was right. He was being dramatic. He'd spent so long being careful, being scared, being convinced he didn't deserve good things that he'd forgotten how to just accept them. "Give me 2 weeks," he said. Victoria raised an eyebrow. "For what?" "To do it right. To plan something. To make it special." "Ryan, you don't have to." "I want to. You gave up being a CEO for us. The least I can do is plan a decent proposal. The least you can do is ask me before I change my mind." "You're not going to change your mind." "Confident, are we?" For the first time in my life, yeah, I am. 2 weeks turned into 3 because Ryan kept overthinking it. Grand gesture or simple moment, public or private, ring or no ring. Claire was useless. Just ask her. She'll say yes. His father was worse. Take her somewhere nice. Women like nice places. Mark offered to help plan something elaborate involving a flash mob and a string quartet. Ryan politely declined. In the end, it was Lily who gave him the idea. Just do it at home, she said. That's where we're happiest anyway. So that's what Ryan did. On a random Saturday in August, after Lily had gone to a sleepover at Claire's, Ryan made Victoria's favorite dinner, badly, because he was a terrible cook, and set up candles in his tiny apartment. Victoria arrived to find him panicking in the kitchen because the chicken was burnt and the salad was wilting and nothing was going according to plan. "What's all this?" she asked, looking around at the candles and the disaster zone that was dinner. "I was trying to cook. It went badly." "I can see that. I'm sorry. I wanted it to be special. I wanted... Ryan, what's going on?" He took a breath. Forget the plan. Forget the perfect moment. This was them. Messy and imperfect and real. "I love you," he said. "I've loved you since I was 23. I wasted 7 years being too scared and too proud and too stupid to fight for what I wanted. And I don't want to waste another second." Victoria's eyes widened. Ryan reached into his pocket and pulled out a ring. Not expensive, he couldn't afford expensive, but simple and beautiful. A small diamond on a silver band. "Victoria Hale, will you marry me? Will you keep helping Lily with homework and making terrible coffee and putting up with my tendency to overthink everything? Will you build a messy, complicated real life with us?" Victoria's hand went to her mouth. Tears spilled over. "You're really asking. I'm really asking. The chicken's burnt." "I know. And you're wearing the shirt with the stain on it." "I didn't notice until you got here. And this apartment is way too small for 3 people." "I know that too. And we're probably going to fight about stupid things and hurt each other and mess this up sometimes." "Probably." Victoria stepped closer, taking his face in her hands. "Then yes. Yes, I'll marry you. I'll marry you and your burnt chicken and your stained shirt and your tiny apartment and all of it." Ryan slipped the ring onto her finger with shaking hands. It fit perfectly. Of course it did. They kissed in the middle of the kitchen, surrounded by ruined dinner and melting candles and everything that was wrong about the moment. And it was perfect anyway. The wedding happened 4 months later, in December, small and intimate. Just family and close friends in a simple ceremony at the same cabin where everything had fallen apart and come back together. Lily was the flower girl, beaming brighter than anyone else in the room. Claire cried through the whole ceremony. Thomas and Margaret sat on opposite sides, but both looked genuinely happy. Victoria wore a simple white dress. Ryan wore a suit he'd borrowed from Mark. They wrote their own vows. Victoria went first. "Ryan Mercer, I've spent 7 years trying to build something big enough to fill the hole you left. I built a billion-dollar company. I traveled the world. I achieved everything I thought I wanted, and none of it mattered because I was doing it without you. I promised to stop running, to stop hiding behind work, to show up for you and Lily every single day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. I promised to build a life with you instead of an empire without you." Ryan's voice shook when it was his turn. "Victoria Hale, I've spent 7 years being so scared of getting hurt that I hurt myself. I convinced myself that sacrifice was noble, that suffering made me strong, that I didn't deserve happiness. You taught me that I was wrong. You taught me that love is worth fighting for, that happiness is worth risking pain, that I deserve good things even when I'm terrified of losing them. I promised to stop being scared, to stop pushing you away, to let you love me even when I don't understand why you do. I promised to build a life with you that's messy and imperfect and real." When they kissed, Lily cheered loud enough to make everyone laugh. The reception was in the cabin's main room. Dancing and terrible speeches and too much wine. Ryan watched Victoria laugh at something Claire said and felt his chest expand with something he'd forgotten how to feel. Joy. Simple, uncomplicated joy. Later, when most people had gone to bed, Ryan found Victoria standing on the deck. The same deck where they'd kissed in the snow a year ago, where everything had started falling apart and coming together. "Hey," he said, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "Hey yourself, husband." That's going to take some getting used to. You have the rest of your life to practice. They stood in silence, looking out at the frozen lake. Snow was starting to fall again, soft and quiet and beautiful. Do you regret it? Ryan asked quietly. Stepping down? Changing your life? Marrying me instead of staying in your penthouse running board meetings? Victoria turned in his arms to face him. Not for a single second. Do you regret letting me in? Taking the risk? Choosing happiness over safety? No, not at all. Then stop asking. Stop waiting for me to realize I made a mistake. This is what I want. You're what I want. Ryan kissed her forehead. I love you. I love you too. From inside, they could hear Lily's laughter. She was telling Thomas and Margaret some elaborate story about school, Ryan's daughter, Victoria's stepdaughter now, their family. She asked me something yesterday, Victoria said. What? If we're going to have more kids, brothers or sisters for her. Ryan's heart skipped. What did you say? I said we'd talk about it, that it was up to both of us. What do you think? Ryan thought about his tiny apartment that was now truly too small. Thought about Victoria's two-bedroom place that would also be too small if they had another kid. Thought about sleepless nights and diapers and all the chaos that came with babies. I think we should get a bigger place first, he said. Victoria's smile was radiant. Is that a yes? That's a maybe we should talk about it seriously instead of on our wedding night. Fair enough. But Ryan was already thinking about it, already imagining a house with enough bedrooms for everyone, a yard where kids could play, a life that kept expanding instead of staying small and safe. It was terrifying. It was also exactly what he wanted. 3 years later, Ryan stood in the backyard of the house they'd bought together, a modest 4-bedroom in a good school district, and watched Lily push her baby brother on a swing set. Higher, the 3-year-old demanded. I'm going as high as I can, Marcus. You're heavy. I'm not heavy. I'm big, Ryan laughed from the porch. Victoria appeared beside him with 2 cups of coffee, handing him one. They're going to break that swing set, she said. Probably. Should we stop them? Probably. Neither of them moved. This was their life now. A house that was always messy, kids who were loud and demanding and perfect. Jobs they actually liked. Ryan teaching full-time at the college. Victoria running a successful venture capital firm she'd started 2 years ago. Date nights that sometimes got canceled because of sick kids or work emergencies. Arguments about whose turn it was to do dishes. The mundane, beautiful chaos of real life. Do you ever miss it? Ryan asked. Your old life, the excitement, the power. Victoria considered the question seriously. Sometimes. But then I remember what it cost me. The loneliness, the exhaustion, the feeling that no matter how much I achieved, it was never enough. And now? Now I wake up next to you. I have breakfast with our kids. I work on projects I actually care about instead of just projects that make money. I have dinner with family. I go to bed exhausted but happy instead of exhausted and empty. She leaned against him. I don't miss my old life. I miss who I thought I needed to be. But I like who I actually am so much better. Who's that? Your wife. Marcus and Lily's mom. Victoria the person instead of Victoria the CEO. Ryan kissed her temple. I like her too. Just like? Love. I love her. I love you. Better. They watched their kids play until Lily got tired and Marcus started crying because he didn't want to stop. Typical evening. Ryan scooped up his son while Victoria helped Lily inside. Bath time and dinner and stories and the 1,000 small moments that made up a life. Not the life Ryan had planned at 23. Not the life Victoria had built at 30. But the life they'd chosen together. Messy and imperfect and real. That night, after the kids were asleep, Ryan found the old photo album Claire had made him years ago. Pictures from before. Him and Victoria at 23, laughing at some joke he couldn't remember. Young and in love, and convinced they had all the time in the world. They'd wasted so much of that time. 7 years of silence and pain and stubborn pride. 7 years they could never get back. But they had now. They had today and tomorrow and all the messy, beautiful days ahead. And sometimes, Ryan thought as he closed the album, sometimes the bravest thing 2 broken people could do was stop protecting themselves and start living. Sometimes happiness was worth the risk of pain. Sometimes love was worth fighting for, even when you were terrified. Sometimes the person you spent 7 years trying to forget was exactly the person you needed to remember how to be whole. Victoria found him in the living room, holding the old photo album. "Looking at baby us?" she asked. "Yeah, we were so young. We were idiots. That too." She sat beside him, resting her head on his shoulder. "Do you think we would have made it if we'd stayed together back then, before everything got complicated?" Ryan thought about it. Two 23-year-olds in love, before loss and responsibility and fear had hardened them. Before Lily. Before the empire. Before all the walls they'd built. "No," he said honestly. "I don't think we would have. We needed to grow up first, to figure out who we were separately before we could figure out who we were together. Even if it meant losing 7 years, even then. Because the people we are now, the broken, scarred, imperfect people, we know how to fight for this. 23-year-old us would have given up at the first real problem." Victoria was quiet for a long moment. Then, "I think you're right. I think we needed to lose each other to understand what we were losing." Heavy thoughts for a Tuesday night. It's what you get for breaking out the photo albums. Ryan closed the album and pulled Victoria closer. "No regrets?" "Not a single one." "You?" "Just one." "What's that?" "That I didn't ask you to marry me sooner, that I wasted time being scared when I could have been happy. We're happy now. That's what matters." "Yeah, we are." And they were. Not perfect, not easy, but happy in the way that matters, the deep, lasting kind that comes from choosing someone every single day, from fighting for them when it's hard, from showing up even when you're scared, from building a life instead of an empire, from being real instead of right, from loving someone enough to let them see all your broken pieces and trusting them not to run. Outside, snow started falling again, just like it had at the cabin years ago, just like it had on 100 other nights. But this time, Ryan wasn't standing in the cold watching his life pass by. He was inside, warm and present, with the woman he loved and the family they'd built together. This time, he was finally fully home. And that, Ryan thought, as Victoria's breathing evened out against his shoulder, was worth every moment of pain it took to get here. Because sometimes the best things in life aren't the ones that come easy. Sometimes they're the ones you fight for. Sometimes they're the ones you lose and find again. Sometimes they're the ones that break you and rebuild you into someone strong enough to hold them. Sometimes they're worth waiting for. Even if it takes 7 years, even if it costs everything, even if you're terrified, love is always worth it in the end.